for a game I've actually played through, Mafia 1 originally released in August of 2002, but was remade by Hangar 13 Studios, I'm going to guess, but it's not in my notes, and released in September of 2020. It was released on all major platforms except the Nintendo Switch. I really hate it when people say released on all the Xboxes, all the PlayStations, and PC. It drives me crazy. Just say Nintendo is a freaking phase behind and can't run most of these games. Just say everything but the Nintendo Switch.
I think they just put it on the Switch pretty recently. I think. I might be wrong.
I thought so too, but I didn't find it according to Google. I could have been wrong.
Never mind. I must be thinking about something else.
I thought so
Italians. Too. You can only have the one Italian family, being the Marios. You can't have anybody else.
The story follows and is sort of told by Tommy Angelo. His story starts with him being a taxi cabbie in Lost Heaven, Illinois in the 1930s when a couple of good fellas jump in his taxi, escaping some thugs, and they tell him to drive. He slowly works his way up the ranks from driver to main man because he's the best driver and shot that Don Salieri has. Don being the boss. Each level is basically a chapter in his story. It will skip like a year in time to just like highlights big important jobs that he remembers. It usually starts with the guys around a table listening to the boss brief them in on what he needs done next. Knock off a guy from a rival mob or a political figure that's working against the Don. Do some rum running. You know the drill. Honestly, I can't think of anything in particular that sticks out from the story. It just feels like playing a great mobster movie. I have one complaint about the story, though. So early on, there's a level where you walk the Don's bartender's daughter home. After that level, it's quickly mentioned that Tommy's dating her, and a little later it's mentioned that they're married. They show her at the end of the game being kind of nervous and upset at him for living a dangerous life of crime. But that's it. That level near the beginning of the game set her up as such a badass chick. She's one of the few women that knows about what's going on in the family. And she's like, you don't have to walk me home. I can handle myself. And she does participate in the fight that inevitably comes. But after that, she's almost forgotten about. And it felt like a missed opportunity. It felt like they were setting her up to be some very important piece of the family, and it wasn't. She was kind of nothing. So that was a bummer. Gameplay. I was surprised while playing how very... Wow. Try to English. I was surprised while playing how much driving there is in this game. It felt like every level had a driving section, which is kind of understandable. He started as a taxi driver, but it seemed like that would lessen as he worked his way up the chain. One level, you actually have to fill in for the 30s version of a NASCAR driver, and you're expected to win the race. That was the level that broke me, because I was playing on the hardest difficulty, and I was doing fine. It's about halfway through the game that this happens, but the NASCAR race just killed me, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't even come close. It was so frustrating. It's quite often you're driving a crew of fellas around, either chasing down a guy trying to get away or being chased after having done something illegal. The driving itself is okay. Cars are intentionally slow and heavy because it is the 30s. My troubles came in two packages. Cars ahead of me would suddenly decide to turn right into my way all the time. Even like they would turn left from the far right lane. It felt way too intentional that they were trying to be in the way. Also, during every chase scene, absolutely every NPC walking down the sidewalk felt the need to run into the street as a high-speed car chase is coming through downtown. Like, why? I often ran someone over because they jumped in front of me while I was racing through town. And that would only raise the heat from the cops. And I know I didn't expand on that further. You have 5 stars of how aware the police are of you. So the more bad things you do, the higher the heat gets, the more blockades they set up, the faster they are, the more likely they are to kill you instead of capture you. So I would get unnecessary heat because people would just literally yeet themselves in front of me. It was very frustrating. This is unsubstantiated, but the open world of this game feels very heavily inspired by Grand Theft Auto games, but I'm only guessing about that because I've never actually played one. But it just feels like it's in the same vein. I don't know even which one came first, but I'm pretty sure they were close in release to each other. So that's just a thought that was bouncing around in my brain. Shooting feels good. Guns fire at different rates of speed, and they hit differently depending on what you're shooting. So a hunting rifle kills in 1 or 2 shots, whereas a pistol kills in 4 or 5. Headshots feel satisfying because they are always a 1-shot kill, but they get more and more difficult depending on how far away the target is, and that's because of the reticle setting. So that was a very good balance. There are so many collectibles in this game. There are 22 cigarette box trading cards of all notable characters from the story, 4 different pulp books, 20 of each. So I forget what it is. It's like detective, sci-fi, horror, and something else. So there's the 4 topics, and there's 20 of those. 10 dime comics, which was cool. It was nice collecting those because it was reminiscent of our show. 5 postcards, 50 secret foxes, 36 different vehicles to collect. I was going nuts trying to find everything without a guide. And I got about halfway through everything. A detail that made me happy is that the map only shows a collectible only when you are in proximity to it. The marker isn't always there like fill in the blank Ubisoft game. It would be like on the mini map, it would show you like 1 or 2 rooms away. Hey, there's a book in that room. So that was very, very good. Audio. Cars all sound pretty distinct. I chose the option to have every car drive like a manual transmission, and the audio was very helpful in car chases to know what gear I was in, and thus generally how fast I was going, and decide if I should shift up or down. Spencer just rolled his eyes when I said manual transmission, but it's very, very helpful because the cars are so heavy, it's difficult to make a 90-degree turn. So if I was going really, really fast down a straightaway, I would shift down a gear or 2. It wouldn't drop my transmission like in reality. It would just slow me down enough to make the turn and not careen into a lamppost or something. So it was very, very helpful. Guns sound great, and they add to the gameplay. Automatic pistols feel snappy. Revolvers make the revolving sound. The shotgun is crunchy. You can hear every round being loaded into the hunting rifle. The characters had some seriously sweet microphones when the voice actors were recording. Tommy is seemingly always smoking, and you can hear him taking a hit off the butt and breathing out as he's conversing. It actually kind of got a little bit annoying because of how often you could hear him breathing. I would recreate it if I wasn't very, very sick right now. To be honest, this game is unhealthy because as the Don is briefing everyone at the table, he's smoking a fat cigar and everyone else is smoking cigarettes, and it just made me, the player, want to be smoking a cigar and sipping a little bit of whiskey as I played. It was excellent. Visuals are good, but there are some oddities. There was often a weird hue or blur along hard lines, making things look fuzzy. So, for example, if a character walked behind a lamppost, the lamppost had a multi-layer white fuzz around the hard black outline. It was quite odd. It might be something in my graphic settings. It wasn't distracting to the game. It was just weird. Some cheap looking smoke effects. It looked like a cheap plug-in or add-on to the engine instead of like custom built or even modified from a pre-use plug-in, especially with light beams going through the smoke. It didn't look that great. But those little things out of the way, this game looks like a late PS3, early PS4 game with some excellent patches to try to upscale it. I don't mean that as a backhanded compliment. It looks good, but it's obviously a remaster or a re-something. It looks like it's unmistakably a PS2 game that's been redone somehow. I got this from my Humble Bundle monthly subscription. So I got it with about 9 other games for $12, and it's a good deal. There's a free play mode that lets you collect a bunch of things you missed while playing the story, and maybe some extras in there, like some extra hidden cars that weren't in my original count. So lots of content besides just the story. Absolutely worth $12.
That is quite the steal. I have been pondering playing these games, I think, since the remaster got announced. I figured I should at some point, get in touch with history and old boomer games or whatever. I don't know. I keep pushing it off. But also apparently the remaster, like the launch of the remaster remake, whatever, was really rough. So I kind of wanted to dodge it, and I just forgot it existed. But $12 is great.
Yep.